everybody. Jyotsna here, and my students like to call me Coach Joe. I just love it when students follow their creative pen, so as to speak, write something and take it to the finish line to get it published. So we have one such author here today who authored this book, Born with a Superpower. Yes, it took him like 2 long years to complete it, but he did finish it and get it published. So let's welcome Nived Lakshman, author of Born with Superpower. Welcome, Nived.
Hi, Coach Joe. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your book?
My book is a short novel dedicated to kids, and it's about a young kid named Tharn who comes from the gods, the heavens, and wades through the world, kind of goes through the world's challenges to create his own path, and eventually he becomes king of a great kingdom after navigating through many challenges like backstabbings, and he actually comes out a better person at the end.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, how did you select the title of the book, right? So, you want to share the book that you have, Born with Superpower?
After spending a couple years on and off laboring on it and creating the text, I had a lot of trouble coming up with the title, and I decided, you know what? Let me keep it simple. I think that let's discuss Tharn's greatest capability, which is that he is born with a superpower. So I decided to name it that. Made it very simple, made it very easy to read along.
Wonderful. And how did you go about selecting the name of the characters?
So, originally I started out with the name Peter, but as the story went along and I started to delve more into the setting, I decided that it didn't really make much sense. It didn't make much sense to call him Peter. I thought about names and words that described someone as morally good as Peter. And after doing a lot of research, I decided to name him Tharn. I think that Tharn is the name that best encapsulates the protagonist, formerly Peter's, best capabilities, which is that he's kind, empathetic, and learns well.
Okay, that's nice. And I also see that your book has chapter names and everything. So there is this chapter called The Battle of the Whispering Pines. What is that about?
So, what happens there is it's actually a lot to explain, but Tharn's adoptive mother and his pack, so to say, I don't want to spoil too much of the book, but he ends up fighting a grave enemy, and after a long, hard battle, which encompasses a lot of his loss and delves into a lot of Tharn's personality, some of his weaknesses even. He ends up winning the battle, but at a great cost.
Okay, wonderful. And what was the hardest scene to write?
I would say the hardest scene to write is when Tharn loses his adoptive mother figure. This is someone that loved him, raised him, and it was hard to think about. It was hard to write about and think about some of the emotions that must have been going through Tharn's head. I tried to make it as realistic as possible so that the reader feels a part of Tharn's struggle. The reader feels a part of Tharn's loss, which is one of the most important things that an author can do. And I hope and I tried my best to get that into the book as best as I could, and that took me a lot of um, deleting, and it took me a lot of copy and pasting, and it took me a lot of getting it right, and that took me a while. That was probably the hardest part to do.
Okay. And how was the creative writing process? Did it energize you or exhaust you?
I would say a bit of both. I think some days I was just really excited to come and write, and other days I there was no motivation, and I think that it's because sometimes you put your thoughts on a paper and it seems very good, but in reality, it might be not what you wanted it to be. The story is choppy, the lesson isn't there, so you have to delete and redo it, delete and redo until you come up with something that's best, something that best encapsulates what you wanted to have come across. And that that's a process that really drains you, but also energizes you. Like some days I couldn't wait to go to that through that logic, through that logic and make a mistake and then get it right, make a mistake and get it right. That's kind of human nature and it energized me and exhausted me, trust me.
Okay, wonderful. So, how did you balance schoolwork and your writing commitments?
I have to be honest when I say this. I also left the book sometimes for long periods of time just because school was getting bad, a lot of work going on like during AP exams. Sometimes I couldn't sit down and do it because I was studying, or sometimes like what before I was taking a standardized test, I couldn't do it. But I spent a lot of the summers trying to get it right. Come home after an internship or wake up in the morning, try to get some done, and then, go on with my day, try to space it out. And some days I would have a huge writing spree where I'd write a lot, or some days I would, not even be able to sit down because either I was busy or just I just couldn't. Like my brain wasn't there.
Okay. And what was the hardest part of this process?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. I would say the hardest part of the process was the edits because when I sat down with my editors, the good Jennifer Tuban, and I sat down, with myself, just me and the doc, trying to go through it, and I realized that some of the story elements were just not there. And I think that's something both of us realized, and I just had to keep going through it. Sometimes you think you try your best, but you might have more to give. So the writing process is also about getting the most out of you, right? Draining, like I compare it to wringing a rag. When you wring a rag the first time, right? A lot of water will come out and you might think that's it. But you have to wring it a little bit more until it's fully dry. And I think that's something I really struggled with, which was wringing myself dry, getting all the emotions and ideas that I might have had and wringing that rag dry until it was finally dry.
Okay. And also, like, did the author program help you? Uh, like, would you have written and published a book without a program like this?
I have to say no. I mean I think that number one, the author program gave me incredible guidance and it taught me exactly how to write it. They made me brainstorm a good idea, brain dump, come up and edit it. So not only did it teach me how to do it, how to put in the hard work, it also taught me how to become a better author. You know, Although it might just be constructing a book, it was also constructing a mindset. And I think that although the author program just had a book, there's so much more inside my head that came through as a result.
Okay, that sounds good. And also, like, when did you start the book? If you could give us like kind of a timeline.
So I started the book near the end of ninth grade, and I'm actually a senior now. We published it in August, and I mean I kind of worked on and off. Some days I'd work very hard. Some days, as I explained before, some days I'd work very hard. Some days I wouldn't work at all, and I tried. And more as I got through it, I came up with this 75 to 100 page book that actually sounds good and that actually made me happy as a writer, as a 12th grader, as a teenager, something that actually taught me the skills, never give up on your first try, which is a lesson that we always hear, but you only learn it when you actually do the work.
Okay. And also, there's a common misconception that you have to be an exceptionally good creative writer to become an author. Is that true?
I disagree with that mindset. I think that as long as you work hard, I really think that you get it. I know that's a lesson we often hear a lot. But I think it's true. Like I think that as long as you put your mind to something, you're good at it. Like there are very few things in the world where like if you just not spend time on it, it won't work. Like as long as you just put in the time, the hours, the days, you'll get a product that you're happy with. Coach Joe, I know you work a lot with Common App essays. I think this is the exact same way. I think kids like myself would come into the Common App essay like thinking that I'm not a writer. I'm not good at writing. This is not my strong suit, right? But then you are able to extract it out of them, right? And I think that's where the author program also comes in. I think that it takes people who might not be good writers, who might not think that they are good writers, right, and turn them into good writers, just like how you turn a bad Common App essay into a great one.
Excellent. And also, would you recommend other students to start writing uh, a, a book and publishing? What advice would you give another student?
The advice that I'd give to another student is don't be afraid to hit the backspace button. I think that you are going to make mistakes. I think that sometimes you're just going to fundamentally change the book on a whim, and you have to trust your gut as well. And I think that if you're interested in doing it, do it. I think that as long as you put in some hours, put in some dedicated hours, I think you'll come up with a good product.
Okay. And how did it transform you as a writer, or what value did it teach you, this whole process?
I mean, as I said before, I think that the number one thing it taught me was, be afraid. Don't be afraid to backspace. Don't be afraid to, change your ideas. Don't be so steadfast in what you believe that you're not willing to change from it. Because sometimes what you put down on the paper is bad, and it takes a lot of self-discipline. It takes a lot of, you know, how do I say it? It takes a lot of courage to remove it, even though you worked so hard on it. So I think that it taught me that, like sometimes the best product can be better than we ever thought.
Excellent. And can you please share how Professor Jennifer Tuban, who's the head of creative writing of Gifted Gapper, how her guidance helped you with creating this product or this wonderful book that you successfully published?
Yeah, I would have to say that I think that Jennifer was like literally the most important resource for my book. Um, I would sit down with her and we would edit and we would just talk about ideas, and she knew my mind at times better than I knew my mind. Um, I think that we finally sat down and we finally came up with something that satisfied not only myself but made it an enjoyable read for her. And I think that having that outside perspective like Dr. Jen is so vital for the writing process, and I couldn't have asked for a better mentor than Dr. Jen.
Excellent. Yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time to promote your book. It's wonderful. And can you tell us a little bit about the design? Yes, you wrote the book, but can you tell us about how you came about designing it? The picture in front looks a lot like you. So how did you go about uh, creating the cover page and everything? Was
I
it
think
fun?
that was also a process that was also a bit of a struggle. Going into Canva and then deleting, adding, deleting, adding, deleting, adding until I finally came up with a product that encapsulated what Tharn was going through, what the reader would be experiencing. I think that it's something that leaves some mystery. Like if you're just getting into the novel, you might see some of that character like in the front in the novel, and you might be wondering what happens after that. And I think that the point of a cover is to entrance the reader and to show the reader kind of what is to come. And I think that took me a while to get, but I think we finally got it.
Excellent. Any last words that you would like to add? How does it feel having successfully published a book?
I think that if I could say something, it's that I would do it over again. I mean, I think that this type of work definitely like made me a better writer, made me a better student, it just made me more overall understanding of myself, what I wanted from these type of processes. That's why I think I truly loved the process and I would do it over again.
Excellent. Excellent. So thank you so much, Nived, for being here. Let's take a snapshot of you with the book. Okay, great job. And I wish you well. I hope you write and publish more books. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.